Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast. And wherever you are, whatever you're listening from, I just want you to know that I appreciate you being with me here today for episode 8. Now, what a week it has been for the Sharks. It's probably one of their biggest tests that they've had so far. You know, they played probably some of the best teams in the East right here, where Washington and Florida are actually leading in their divisions right now, and Tampa's in a wild card spot, but they're the type of team you don't want to underestimate. Obviously, the Sharks did have to learn that lesson officially this week. But yeah, so this was a big test for the Sharks. We kind of knew they would have their struggles. We didn't expect it to be this bad for some of them, but there were some highlights you could look to. The one thing I wanted to point out was Will Smith. I really noticed his maturity, especially in the game against Tampa Bay. I know that they got destroyed, but there were some plays that he made where he was just really aggressive. He knew how to play against the walls. He played defensively, trying to get the puck. And there was some points of the game where he had really nice chances where he shot on goal, where before in the beginning of the season when he had those kinds of chances, he'd kind of shy away from getting a shot. He'd kind of be holding off to get a nice pass. You could just really see his confidence out there, and I just love seeing his growth and his maturity. And again, it's only his first year. He's 19 years old, and considering how bad it started, like the fact that he's maturing this fast is really silencing those people that were trying to say, oh, bring him back to the AHL to try and get better. So he's looking better, and obviously he missed the Florida game with a small injury this week, but yeah, he's just looking very, very good overall. Yeah, right now the Sharks, let's just look at the standings here. They are 27th place overall. They've played 30 games so far, which is the most out of anybody else. So fatigue might be into how they lost these games. They've been traveling a lot these last couple of months, especially the East. It's not easy being in the San Jose's time zone because you play mostly 10:30 games, so you're 10:30 games in the East Coast, so you're used to kind of that late as possible versus when you're in the East, you're a lot earlier. Some of these games start as early as 4 p.m. for some of these Sharks in the Pacific. Some of the Sharks fans watching, and the Sharks just body clocks. So, that can really play a lot into the factor of what they're doing right now. But anyways, their record right now in 30 games, they have 10 wins, 15 losses, 5 overtime losses, and they have 82 goals for, 108 goals against. So that goal differential looked a little bit better before this week. Unfortunately, Tampa Bay kind of skewed those numbers, but what can you do? Just a tough week for the Sharks, but when you're playing against these really good teams and you're a team that's expected to be a bottom feeder, you have a lot of young players that are still trying to figure it out. Not really much of a surprise. I think the best surprise is how well they played against Washington on Tuesday. And in terms of the top performers, the top point getters for the Sharks right now, Mikael Granlund, who hasn't left the top, he's still first place in terms of points. 29 points in 27 games played, 10 goals, 19 assists. He's actually tied with Tyler Toffoli for the most goals. He's leading the team in assists. William Eklund is actually second with 18 assists, who actually is second in points as well with 23 points. Zetterlund rounds that out with 20 points. So these guys are the only 3 guys with 20 points right now for the Sharks. Eklund has 5 goals, 18 assists for 23 points, and Zetterlund has 9 goals, 11 assists for 20 points. And Jake Wallman has continued to be the best all-around defenseman for the Sharks, you would say, but he is 4th place in scoring. He's got 19 points and 4 goals, 15 assists in 24 games. So he's actually kind of rounding himself out nicely. I still can't believe that the Sharks got him with a sweetener for absolutely nothing, and he's been an absolute stalwart for the back end for the Sharks. And Tyler Toffoli is 5th place with 29 games. He's got 10 goals, 8 assists, and 18 points. And what can you say about the guy? He's just been such a steady presence. He had a hotter start for the Sharks this year, but the fact that he's still been so consistent and just to have that veteran guy in the room, I can imagine him being really, really good. Just with the experience he has, the 2 Stanley Cups. I think he's an understated kind of guy. He doesn't really get a lot of the limelight, but he always does. His goals are always so consistent, just so, I don't want to say professional, but it's just like another day in the office for him, the way he does it. You know what I mean? He's seen so much in the NHL, and the fact that he's just been a steady presence for the Sharks has been really nice. And 6th place, slowly climbing up in the ranks, is Macklin Celebrini. He's got 17 games played with 8 goals, 7 assists, and 15 points. What can you say about him? We're gushing about him every week. But yeah, he's been absolutely a stud. And that kind of rounds out the top 6. The Sharks didn't get too many goals this week. I mean, they only scored about 4 goals, which isn't much. But again, it was a tough route. So let's actually just tear into the games right now. All right, let's start with Washington and San Jose. This would be San Jose's second stop on their road trip, visiting the Washington Capitals after a couple of days break from the Seattle game in Seattle. Logan Thompson makes a lot of great saves in this game. Sharks could have had more goals, but Thompson was just absolutely playing out of his mind. Washington did have more shots on goal, but the game looked a lot more even from the eye test, in my opinion. This is one of the Sharks' most complete games I've seen all season, really. They went all the way to overtime against a really good team. That's a lot to say for them. I mean, first of all, they didn't allow a goal against immediately after scoring, and that was something that's been happening at least twice a week, where the Sharks two games a week, I would say, and more than once a game, where they would score a goal and then like 2 minutes after the other team would respond. And this says a lot in this game because Washington is actually the best team this season at immediately responding to a goal scored against them. So credit to them. That was a big thing for the Sharks. There was very few bad plays from the Sharks overall, I would say. They had a really good effort, full 60 minutes, like I said. So that's something I wanted to just point out with this game. But there's a couple things that did bother me. So the first period, there was a few penalties in the beginning of the period, but some soft calls. So there was one for Grunstrom where he cross-checked someone, and he barely hit him. He barely hit him that hard, and the refs called it there. And then 7 minutes later, Celebrini we caught for a hooking call, and it was barely a hook. His stick was on him. He was kind of holding him a bit, but I don't know. It was two things that really just bugged me there. Chikrin would even kind of slash Salandra, and it seemed like a pretty soft play. I know we should be defending Washington, but another soft call. I guess maybe it was like a ref's makeup call. But just three really weird penalties that the refs shouldn't have really called. They should just let the guys play. In the playoffs, I would assume none of those would have been called. But they're just something that I just wanted to point out that, this season it seems like the Sharks are getting these kinds of really soft calls. It might be happening in the league. Drew Remenda has said he's talked to the refs about one of them is the slashing call where if your stick touches the ice and you lift it up and just touch the guy barely, the refs are going to call that as a slash no matter what because they think the momentum from holding your stick on the ice to the guy's arm is going to make such a difference of pain. I don't know. But either way, some of these soft calls happening there. But Blackwood made some amazing saves this period too. Behind the net, somehow he falls onto the puck to freeze it, and the Capitals had no chance there. And with all that momentum for the Sharks, Toffoli ended up scoring a goal unassisted within the last minute of the period. It was just Toffoli skating onto the Washington zone just past the blue line, and he just snipes it top corner. It was a beautiful shot. Just a professional goal. He's the pro's pro, right? Like I was saying about Toffoli before. He's the type of guy, he's just an unsung hero. He just does what he needs to do. And any other player, you'd be like, oh man, so incredible. He's such an amazing guy. But it's just another day in the office for Toffoli, It was just another great shot. He celebrates and he enjoys it. But yeah, that was just a really nice thing to see. And the Sharks would end that period 1-0. Didn't have to worry about a goal against that they used to get. But Washington did outshoot them 16-8. But yeah, the Sharks still played solid. They played like a team. They didn't make any terrible, egregious mistakes. Washington, you could argue, had the edge, but they were not that dominant. On the second period, Wenberg would trip Eller just early in that second period, and that's the thing you got to worry about with the Sharks. Washington, you got to be careful against them because they actually had the 13 power play goals in the last 11 games. So they were hot at this time, and you got to just not be making those dumb penalties. Last period, you could say those penalties were kind of just bullcrap from the refs, but this one was just an obvious tripping call. You got to be careful with that one. And Dowd would end up scoring a little bit later. Sharks ended up killing that penalty, but Dowd would end up scoring a little bit later. It was a nice one-timer from the face-off in the San Jose zone, and yeah, they would end up tying the game 1-1, and it was just a nice one-timer across from below the hash marks, and yeah, the Sharks were caught leaving Dowd open. So this is another issue with the Sharks a little bit, where they would kind of too many guys were covering one guy, too many defenders, and then Dowd was wide open. So that's one of the things that I would want to point out as well. The Sharks didn't have that many mistakes, but that was one of their common mistakes that they ended up allowing that goal against for doing that. But either way, the rest of the second period was mostly low event hockey, so nothing to really complain about there. When Blackwood had to step up, he made a lot of saves that mattered, but so did Logan Thompson. Now the third period was a lot of low event hockey as well. Eller would get revenge on Wenberg and trip him back, but he'd go to the box for it. But Washington would still get the penalty. Ferraro would give away the puck, giving a 2-on-1 for Washington. But Sturm and how he was missed for those games, like this is the kind of stuff we need him for. He breaks up that play and ends up making a low chance for Washington to get a goal. The Toffoli, Zetterlund, Eklund line had a great shift. They had 3 good chances, but Thompson just had to make a crazy toe save. So just Thompson, again, playing out of his mind in this game. And the biggest thing at the end of the third period was Tom Wilson would high stick Celebrini, and Celebrini would be bleeding, so that would be a 4-minute double minor for the Washington Capitals, and the Sharks would get a 4-minute power play, which would drag into the overtime period. But before we get onto that overtime period, I just wanted to say how much of a warrior Celebrini was. You know, he takes it in stride, he's bleeding, shows the ref to make sure you can get that double minor call for you. And yeah, he goes into the bench, gets fixed up, and he ends up playing in the overtime period and actually being a big catalyst for the period. So yeah, just credit to Celebrini. Again, we're probably going to be gushing about him every single week, just of how everything he does is just he's such a good player. He's such a great leader, probably the future captain. Very easy to say he's going to be the future captain of this team when the time has come. But yeah, just wanted to say credit to him. He gets that penalty and still just a warrior out there. So in the overtime period, one thing I wanted to point out was Granlund. He had a chance from center ice to get a breakaway, and the ref gets in his way. So just another thing of the refs just kind of ruining this game and trying to, it was an accident, but at the same time, like, how could you get in the way when there's a 3-on-3? There's only 3 guys on the ice for each team. Like, how do you get in the way for him? So, yeah, that was kind of annoying. But either way, the Sharks would end up getting lucky anyway and benefiting. Eklund would snipe it between Thompson's legs from a play with Granlund and Celebrini, and the Sharks would win in overtime. Just a good effort from the Sharks. Full 60 minutes, probably the best we've ever seen. I did mention a couple of mistakes, but considering they were very minor, and the Sharks end up winning this one, and they're playing against a team that's known for scoring a lot of goals. And before this game, the Washington Capitals were scoring on average like 3 to 4 goals a game. So the fact that the Sharks held them down to this on an away game after traveling so much the month before and having a little bit of a homestand, just a lot of credit to them in playing the most games in the season so far. This was a game that the Sharks could be really proud of themselves and move on from. Now, we'll have to talk about the next games, though. They didn't really move on properly, but this is just one of those games you can look back at and say, okay, the Sharks are capable of playing that kind of playoff-style hockey if they want to. Lots of growth that's still needed, but there's still a lot of positives from this game to take from. Just a quick overview of the important game stats. The Sharks ended up outshooting the Washington Capitals 31-28. The faceoffs were pretty much 50-50, and the Sharks were the only ones to actually capitalize on the power play in the overtime period. They were 1 for 4, while Washington was 0 for 3. The Sharks out-hit the Washington Capitals 30-22. Washington actually had more block shots, 24-19, and the giveaways were 23-20 for the San Jose Sharks, which, it happens, but it was pretty close between both of them, so you can't complain. Anyways, on to Tampa Bay. This would be game 29 of the Sharks season, and they would be playing Tampa Bay on Thursday. This one was a barn burner, and honestly, just the Sharks are just outclassed by a team that's done it before. They've won before. They're a confident team, mostly laden with veterans and a lot of Hall of Famers. Well, a couple of Hall of Famers now, but Kucherov was missing in that game. But yeah, it didn't matter. You could just see how much of a better team they were. Nothing you could say about that. Vasilevsky played out of his mind. He was playing at the best goalie in the world. Like he forgot about it for a little bit, and he just remembered from oh yeah, I can do this if I want to. And just the fact that he's such a huge body, nothing could get past him in this game. And the Sharks had a few good looks, but overall they just couldn't beat Vasilevsky at all. But the one positive I took out of this game was just how well Will Smith played. And I know I talked about it in the beginning of this podcast, but this was a game that I really noticed, just a couple of smart plays he did where he was in the boards, he was just battling against somebody for the puck, and he had this aggression, and he actually won the 50-50 puck. And that's just something that you wouldn't have seen in the beginning of the season for him. He's starting to actually show a lot more confidence out there. But another thing he did that was really smart was he on the power play. The Sharks were short-handed, and Will Smith was in the box. He came out of the box and had a chance to get the puck, and instead of just driving to the net right away, he saw an opportunity to kind of slow the game down a bit and kind of wait out the defenseman before using his speed to pass him, and he just absolutely passed him and had a good chance on net. He didn't score, but just those little things that, he'll get better at, and then he'll probably take advantage of those chances when he's a lot more mature. But just these little things that he's doing now, where he's not just like second guessing himself or waiting for an open pass for someone else to support him. He's taking things on his own, and he's actually knowing to know when he needs to do things on his own, and knows when to wait for other things to happen. And it's just really good to see him grow, and that's something that was a good positive in this game, in spite of a lot of negatives. So let's just break down the actual game. So in the first period, Tampa Bay scores 5 goals in 20 minutes. A lot of blemishes in this one. Ferraro screening Vanacek during the Geeky goal, where Geeky had like a bunch of guys in front of him, and Ferraro was trying to box out Atkinson, but in doing that, he blocked Vanacek's view, and Geeky had a very clear shot on net, and that would go in. Granlund had a 2-on-1 chance in this game. Actually, that was a one positive here. He decided to shoot on Vasilevsky, but Vasilevsky would rob him. And the second Hagel goal, Jan Ruda made a huge mistake here. He watched Hagel, Hagel's known for his speed, right? He's one of those guys that can just accelerate out of nowhere. Ruda second guesses how Hagel goes onside, and Ruda kind of stumbles versus starting to, instead of skating backwards and starting to get acceleration, he kind of stutters a bit, and that's just enough for Hagel to get past him and score on Vanacek there. And yeah, just one of those things where Ruda should have probably thought that play a lot better. Kostin had a nice chance when he outweighted a Tampa Bay defenseman who flopped to the ground trying to stop a 2-on-1 pass, and Kostin actually showed a lot of patience waiting him out and going around his stick and getting that pass, but Vasilevsky would rob him. Another thing I noticed was just how good Tampa Bay was at collapsing at the end of the period. It was very obvious the way that the Sharks kind of play similarly, where when the offensive team is attacking and they're circling around, the Sharks like to stick in front of the goalie and try and kind of box everybody out and kind of block, but without getting in the way of the goalie. But they still are really bad at that, where they either too many guys cover one guy and leave another guy open, or they just end up blocking the goalie. Tampa was doing the opposite. Like, while they were collapsing, they were still very mobile at the same time, if that makes sense. And the Sharks could learn a thing or two how well they did that. But so out of those 5 goals, a lot of them were very nice for Tampa Bay. Nothing you could do. The period ended 5-0, and in the second period, Blackwood would end up replacing Vanacek. Vanacek, I think, in 5 goals and 10 shots, it was just a really, really rough period for him. You can't blame him, though. A lot of it was the Sharks' mistakes, and Tampa Bay just taking advantage of that. Even though the Blackwood did replace Vanacek in the second, it didn't really matter at all, because Tampa would score really early into that second period. Cirelli would score from a McDonough pass, and it would be the issue, like I just said before, with the Sharks, the way they collapse. Too many Sharks down low and no one covering the point, and then Cirelli would just end up bombing it because he was on his own. No one's covering him, and everyone's covering the wrong guy. The goal was challenged for an offside, but it was ruled that was a good goal. It took a little while, though, for them to figure that out. So in doing that, the Sharks had a penalty because of the failed coach's challenge, but they would bail out their coach, and there'd be a couple more penalties during that period, but Sharks would kill one and Tampa Bay would kill one. In the last 2 minutes of the game, Perbix would score, and that would make it 7-0 for Tampa Bay. And just that whole period, Vasilevsky was just playing unbelievably out of his mind, and the Sharks were trying, but they just kept getting shut down with chances, and Vasilevsky would also shut them down in goals. Now, the start of period 3, the Sharks actually started out pretty well. First 15 seconds, Wenberg would make it 7-1. Now, this play, credit to Ruda for all the crap he's been getting all season, and even this game. He made a nice play from the Sharks zone. Very great lead pass. He bounces off the sideboards to Cunnin. Cunnin would one-touch it to Wenberg in the center of the ice, and he would just take it on his own and score. It was a very nice play, and again, credit to Ruda for that, and just all 3 players. That was really, really nice play. And a little bit later, this is the one of 2 plays that made me really see how standout Smith was. He had a great shift where he was battling with a guy on the boards for the puck in the San Jose zone, and he ended up winning the puck battle, and he showed a lot of aggression and a lot of guts considering the Sharks were already down 7-1, and just that it just goes to show you this whole team, this never say die attitude is just ingrained with everybody. And also that Smith is growing and maturing. And he's confident enough to try and do that kind of stuff when before he probably just second guess himself, maybe try and get his stick in there to try and get it. But no, he was full on pushing the guy against the boards, and he was very nice to see from Will Smith. But a little bit later, Nick Paul would score, and this would actually be another kind of fumble from the San Jose Sharks zone. Nick Paul, there's a nice play from him, a nice little backhander, but there's two Sharks on him, and none of them could at least, box him out or put their body in the way. Nick Paul just kind of catches the puck and just quickly backhands and goes in. It was a very fast play, but considering two Sharks were covering him, someone should have stopped him. But yeah, at that point, it was 8-1 San Jose, or 8-1 Tampa Bay. And for the rest of the period, Tampa Bay would just be killing the clock. They'd be wasting time, and the Sharks would end up losing that game. Tampa Bay just outclassed them. A lot of classic mistakes that a veteran team like Tampa Bay were going to take advantage of. But yeah, the Sharks definitely needed to play better. Warsofsky, after the game, he was just saying how they had a great practice. They don't understand how they played so badly. He pointed out just how disappointing the play was, but the whole game was. But yeah, nothing you could do in my opinion. The Sharks were just outclassed. It just goes to show you, is this a measuring stick game against a team that's very good? The Sharks just couldn't really handle them. And yeah, just a lesson learned. You can't really say you expected them to win. Shots on goal were 35-21 for Tampa. The Sharks are actually better in the faceoff circle, believe it or not. They had 61% faceoff wins, and Tampa only had 38%. So you'd think they'd be taking advantage of that more, but Tampa Bay, it meant nothing to them. They still managed to do better for that. Power plays, San Jose had 3 power play opportunities, didn't score on one of them. Tampa only had 2 power play opportunities and scored on one. So in this case, credit to the Sharks, who in the beginning of the season were riddled with getting penalties. They had a bunch the last game against Washington where they were limiting their chances to go in the box. Again, not that it mattered, but the fact is it could have been a lot worse if Sharks were a little bit less disciplined and showed more frustration. But yeah, so that was a pretty good sign. San Jose would out-hit Tampa Bay 24-16, which makes sense. If Tampa Bay has the puck, San Jose is allowed to hit them. So obviously the hits are going to be skewed in that sense. Tampa Bay did have 25 block shots to San Jose's 14, and the giveaways were 18 to San Jose to 15 for Tampa Bay. And this game was Tampa Bay's first win of the season against San Jose. San Jose will have a chance for a grudge match on January 2nd in the San Jose Shark Tank. All right, game number 30 in the last game of the week. San Jose visiting Florida, and there definitely was a lot of fatigue here. You could see the Sharks were definitely worn out from the drudging from Tampa Bay and just the long road trip they've had over the last week and probably the whole season so far. But yeah, what can you say about this game other than it was the Matthew Tkachuk show? His attitude, just how much he makes this Florida team play the way he plays. They follow suit. It's unbelievable to see. They're the reigning Stanley Cup champions, so San Jose coming in this game, I didn't expect much from them. I expected them to definitely lose. At least the Sharks made it a little bit more of a game on paper than they did against Tampa Bay, but they just couldn't best them at all. Tkachuk would start the period 30 seconds in, getting in Blackwood's face, and honestly, I think it should have been an interference call because Blackwood would kind of be beside the net trying to get back into his positioning, and Tkachuk's just in his way, not quite pushing him, but just interfering with him a bit to get positioned wise. And Bennett would get the puck, and he was on the half walls, and he would just throw it to Tkachuk, and Tkachuk would bounce it mid-air in front of Blackwood, and that would be the goal in the first 30 seconds of the game. Still, I don't understand how that wasn't a penalty, but this is the kind of game the Sharks are going to have to deal with for the rest of the time because that's exactly what you're going to be expecting from them. They're going to try and get in your face. They're trying to make you forget about playing hockey and trying to get revenge from little things like that. And yeah, so he ended up scoring from that, and that's just, what can you do about that? So Florida would get a too-many-men penalty about 4 minutes in, but San Jose can't set up in that power play, so Florida ended up killing it. They had a time struggling just getting onside, and when they did, they didn't have a chance to hold the puck on long enough to get a good setup and pass going to get power play momentum. But yeah, so Florida would end up getting momentum out of that penalty, by killing that penalty, and they would actually have a few shots, but Blackwood made some really nice saves, shutting them down. Cardwell, I wanted to point out in this game, he was playing his first game after 3 games, I think, in a week. And so he had a point-blank shot, and he was right in front of Bobrovsky, and he had a chance to maybe make a move or even take a shot. Instead, he just waits waits him out, and then he waited for someone to get I guess the Sharks were making a line change, so he was waiting for someone else to get on side, and he ends up passing it to the point, and then the play's just dead from there. So that just goes to show how Cardwell's still young, a rookie. It reminded me a lot of how Will Smith played in the beginning of the season, where he just was unsure about that play. If Cardwell, had another chance now, I bet you he'd try and make a shot on goal. Probably looked at Bobrovsky's, this is one of the best goalies in the world, and he probably got nervous a little bit, and you could tell from there. But, I just wanted to point that out, just how this team is still very young and still figuring things out. So when you're playing a Stanley Cup winning team like the Florida Panthers, who have everything figured out, things like this are going to be extra intimidating for young players. So another highlight of the first period was that Liljegren had a good chance. Bobrovsky coughs up the puck. He tries to make a stretch pass all the way, but Liljegren catches it from the neutral zone and just skates it up himself with his amazing skating ability. This is one of those things that Mike Grier said, this is why we got him. We needed a puck-moving defenseman that's silky smooth like Liljegren. And, he goes to show it there where he ends up skating past a couple of defensemen, gets an okay shot on goal, but Bobrovsky would save it. San Jose's best chance in the first period came 15 minutes into it, where they had a few shots on goal, and it was and in the end, they got nothing out of it. They did get good looks, but Bobrovsky would shut them down. Near the end of the first period, Tkachuk is trying to get under Delandria's skin by just rubbing his face with his glove and just shoving him around. It ends up being a shoving contest. Nothing would come of it, but this is the kind of game that Florida likes to suck you into. They like to make you want to get these shots. Now later, Dellandria, when he's on the ice, might be thinking if he sees Tkachuk, I'm gonna get a hit on him. I'm gonna focus on that versus focusing on the play at hand or something else. This is what they like to do. And for young teams like the Sharks, they know that they can probably take advantage of that more than another more veteran, experienced team. Now, into the second period, I wanted to point out how there was a soft call, and this is just like the Washington game. The refs are just, they're just really calling just things against the Sharks that you wouldn't normally call, definitely not in the playoffs. But Liljegren would get a tripping call, and when you look at the video again, his stick was a little bit on the foot of the Florida guy, but you could see Liljegren kind of just pushed him and he lost his balance and he fell. It had nothing to do with the stick at all, but the refs would call it. And the Sharks had a great PK. They blocked a lot of shots and they ended up killing it. Blackwood would rob Eklund from an open net shot. It was a really great tic-tac-toe pass from Tkachuk to Reinhart to Eklund. Wide open net, and Blackwood just robs. It was definitely the save of the game. One of the saves of the season, to be honest. Blackwood was really the best Shark in this whole game, trying to keep San Jose in it as best as he could. Tkachuk would get a roughing penalty a little bit after that. There was a big scrum. Again, just getting in the Sharks' skin. The Sharks were standing up for themselves, but this is the kind of game that Florida likes to suck you into, like I said. And the Sharks would end up... Florida would end up killing that penalty. It was a better power play for the Sharks, and Celebrini just doing amazing things with the puck, but they wouldn't end up scoring. A little bit later, Tkachuk would get his second goal of the game from Nosek. It was a backhand pass, so what happened was it looked like there was a chance for Tkachuk to make a cross-ice pass for a one-timer, so Blackwood was kind of cheating out of his net a bit, and I guess Tkachuk took advantage of this and just kind of backhands into his shoulder, and it was kind of a lucky goal. It kind of flicked over his shoulder and flipped into the net, but Blackwood was a little bit out of his net to be able to recover, and it would be 2-0 Florida. And another penalty for the Sharks, another awful call. There would be 3 this period. And Kostin would be caught for holding Ekblad. It didn't even look like a hold. He pushed him, and he pushed Ekblad down without even holding him. So if gravity works, how are you gonna if you're holding a guy up? Gravity's not gonna push you both down. He pushed him down, he fell, and the ref called it a pushing call. If you're holding on to him, you're gonna fall with him. And instead, he just kind of pushed him and he kind of fell a bit, but his arm was not even on him at all. It was a really, really awful call. And during that power play, which this is the one that does burn them from a terrible call, Barkov would score, and it was just a bad clear by Ferrero. He's just kind of, I don't know if he was tired or what, but he flicks it off to Matthew Tkachuk, who just makes a nice cross-ice pass, and then Barkov would finish it backdoor, open net this time, and Blackwood couldn't stop him. So it's 3-0 Florida this time. Just an awful, awful penalty that shouldn't have happened. Even in the playoffs, I would assume that would never happen. I can't believe these calls are happening this week for the Sharks. And so after that, it might have been a makeup call. Sam Bennett, we had a hooking call, but Florida would kill that penalty. And then right after that, another penalty in the third one this period. Granlund would high stick Bennett. That would be the call. But what happened was Granlund's stick lifted Schmidt's stick, and Schmidt is the one that hit his own defenseman, his own partner in Sam Bennett, another Florida Panther. Yeah, so Warsofsky's in the bench just livid. He's like, look at this, look at the replay. Like, it wasn't his stick, but the refs had none of it. Sharks ended up having another penalty kill in their hands, and Florida at least wouldn't get any goal out of that, but still, it just egregious to see these refs making these awful calls. There should be some kind of a system in place where they can either look back at the play or just having another ref above the stands, like to talk to the refs in the earpiece and say, hey, I can see that this is a call, this wasn't a good call, whatever. But yeah, just these awful calls shouldn't exist at all in this NHL. And the third period was just a penalty fest, basically. Yeah, the Sharks really showed how well this whole period showed how well the Florida Panthers were good at getting under the Sharks' skin. Mario Ferrero would actually get into I would say sort of a fight. Bennett laid a clean hit on Ty Dellandrea on the boards, and Ferrero would just get mad at him and start like holding him on, and he ends up dropping his gloves. Credit to Ferrero, he tried to show stand up for his teammate and show that he's not going to let that kind of stuff stick around. But Bennett just dummied him. A couple of punches and Ferrero was down. But yeah, credit to him. Ferrero is the type of guy. He gets a lot of flack for the way he's been playing with some mistakes he does. But he plays, you can't deny, he plays with a lot of heart. And he plays with a lot of passion in this game. And he cares about his teammates, and you can see that. So credit to him for trying something there to try and maybe get the Sharks going. But unfortunately, it wouldn't really matter. In the last minute of the game, the Sharks pulled Blackwood, and Toffoli would score to spoil Bobrovsky's shutout. Granlund would be in the point, and he takes a shot perfect at Toffoli's stick, and Toffoli just tips it from the side. Absolute beauty, and just another day in the office for Toffoli. Just a typical easy goal for him, and he just makes not a big deal of it because he knows there's still 2 minutes left. And they know they have to keep going. Blackwood will be pulled again. Celebrini had a decent shot close to the net with a slick play. He evaded Mikkola in the corner of the boards. And he had an okay shot on net, but at this point, nothing happened after that. It was too little too late. The Sharks showed no quit like they always do, where they still wanted to keep push, and they end up getting that goal at the end. Like they've had a lot of goals in the last minute of the game, but in this case, it wouldn't be enough. Florida outshot the Sharks 52-29. Blackwood easily the best Shark in this game. I think it was one of the records for the Sharks most shots at least this season for the Sharks. And the faceoffs were pretty close again, 50-49 for Florida. The power plays were wild. So the Sharks had 7 opportunities and scored on one of them. Florida had 5 opportunities and scored on one of them. So to give it to the Sharks did have some bullcrap calls, but at least there was a pretty even matchup in terms of penalties. The Sharks did have the advantage as well. They just couldn't tack any of them in. In terms of in terms of hits, the Sharks out-hit the Florida Panthers 22-19. The block shots were 20-15 for San Jose. San Jose obviously had more giveaways, 29-26, but they also had takeaways, 6-5. So that's credit to the Sharks for that. The Sharks would lose 3-1 this game. They would see Florida again on January 25th at the Shark Tank. All right, just let's take a look at the San Jose Barracuda and how they're doing this week. So they end up playing 2 games so far this week. They have a one later today at 3 p.m. So last Wednesday they played the San Diego Gulls. They lost 2-1 in a shootout. Askarov will be playing that game, so it was a very tight game. So credit to Askarov for making all the stops he needed to. He stopped 35 out of 36, but then he did end up losing in that shutout. Justin Bailey would get the only goal for the San Jose Barracuda. Podorowski would make a nice feed to him, and it was a nice goal. They would end up losing in the shutout. And the next game would be another crazy tight game for Askarov. It was the home game. It was actually the teddy bear toss for the San Jose Sharks. So they had really cool jerseys on there. You can check out online to see what they were wearing. Askarov would win the game 1-0 by himself because it was a 1-0 shutout. Just unbelievable work from that guy. That was his 3rd shutout of the season at the AHL. And he's been absolutely amazing down there. Van Broboys would be the only one who scored in the first period from Scott Sabrin and Lucas Carlson. And the San Jose Barracuda at least came away with 3 points out of those 2 games. And in terms of the standings here, they are still second place in the Pacific Division. They have 13 wins, 6 losses, and 1 shootout loss, the one coming on Wednesday. And the Wranglers are still just tearing everything away. I think there's going to be a very good playoff matchup between these two guys, and the San Jose Barracuda can upset them, so there's a chance for that. But yeah, the Barracuda right now are not as great, aren't as hot as they were when they started the season, but they're still, holding on very well. They still have a two win lead over the Coachella Valley Firebirds, meaning the next 2 games are really going to matter because the one on Sunday today is against them, and they play them again on Thursday. So they can have the San Jose Barracuda can have a really good chance to get a very big stretch lead ahead of the Coachella Valley Firebirds, or they could end up dropping in second. So hopefully we'll see them play a little bit better. They should be scoring more goals. It's crazy how it's been kind of stagnant the last little while, but when you have someone like Askarov in net, I guess you just have that confidence that he's going to carry you, and he's been doing that, so no complaints there. And the top scorers are still Colin Graff in 20 games. He got 22 points. Andrew Podolski has 20 points in 20 games, so there you have 2-point-a-game guys, and Luca Cagnoni rounds out the top 3 with 18 points in 20 games, followed by Philip Biestet, who's got 11 points in 17 games, and it really just drops off from there. But yeah, your top 3 guys, I would say, are Graff, Podolski, and Cagnoni. Just really good team in terms of the San Jose Barracuda, and we should expect them to at least win one of those next 2 against Coachella Valley. But hopefully they get back to that whole wagon status soon. They can actually play like that team that's unstoppable, because that'd be really cool to see. But maybe they're just better suited to play in the playoffs, and when they play the Wranglers, they might be able to upset them. We'll see. All right, time to round out this podcast with the scheduled win-loss segment, and this is where I'm going to talk about just the teams ahead that the Sharks play for the week, and if they're going to win or lose those games, if they should win or lose those games, and how much points they should get away with. So last week was the first week I was actually 100% right. I predicted they would beat the Washington Capitals and that they would lose the rest of their 2 games, so they ended up getting away with 2 points, which is something the Sharks, the coaches should be happy with in terms of the overall season standings. Obviously, when it comes to the blemishes and the details of the game, the coaches have a lot of work to do. But and overall, expecting what we're expecting from the Sharks is exactly what we got. And in this case, the Sharks have a slightly easier schedule. They are going to play the Carolina Hurricanes on Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific. The Carolina Hurricanes are 3rd place right now in the Metropolitan Division with 35 points. They are plus 20 in goal differential. They have 101 goals for and 81 goals against. Now, the big star of this team right now is Martin Necas. Now, during this offseason, their Carolina Hurricanes had some contract troubles. They had to let a couple of guys go, like Brady Shea. But Necas they knew they needed to keep this guy, and they were right to do that and pay him. Because right now he's leading the league in points, 41 points in 26 games. He got 14 goals, 27 assists, and this just feels like his breakout season, and Carolina is very lucky to sign him now. Usually guys like this would have a season like this on the contract year, in the last year of their contract before signing a new one. Carolina completely lucked out where he did it completely backwards, where he signs his contract and immediately he shows everybody why he deserves the money he's getting paid. And second place is Sebastian Aho with 28 points in 26 games. And third place is Andrei Svechnikov with 22 points in 26 games. And surprisingly, their 4th place guy is 21 points in 26 games, Shane Gostisbehere. So that kind of surprises me because he fell out of the league for a little while there. Like, he wasn't, people thought he wasn't as good since his Philadelphia days. But yeah, he seems to really found a nice home in Carolina and figured some stuff out. And top 5 rounding out there is Seth Jarvis with 17 points in 19 games. Surprisingly, Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, Gostisbehere, and Jarvis are all minus in the plus-minus department. So that's kind of weird. That's not expected for a team that's doing fairly well. But yeah, this is going to be a team that the Sharks are going to have to really, really wake up for. At least they'll be well rested. They'll have a couple of days off before seeing them. Florida's not too far from Carolina, so I assume they're pretty ready there to rest and practice some more. But yeah, compared to this past week, the 3 teams that they faced, this should be an easier matchup. But in the NHL, there's no real easy game. This is just a little bit less of a test. But if they can shut down Necas, I can see the Sharks winning this one. But I'm just going to take a guess and say no, they're not going to win this one just because Carolina's a really good team, and the Sharks are kind of tired, and I think that the Sharks are going to be beat. Maybe they'll go to overtime, but I'm going to say 0 points in this one. And on Thursday, the Sharks will be visiting St. Louis and the Blues, and they are actually they're 3 points out of a wild card spot. They're 4th place. They're right behind Colorado, and Calgary is the last team above Colorado and St. Louis in the wild card spot. So St. Louis is not playing the best hockey, but they just fired their coach a couple weeks ago and picked up Jim Montgomery. But since they got Montgomery, things have kind of turned around for them. So the Sharks should not be sleeping at this game either. They're in St. Louis, and St. Louis is kind of waking up again. So obviously the Sharks going to have a little bit of a hard time with them. The St. Louis Blues top point scorers are Jordan Kyrou with 22 points in 27 games, Pavel Buchnevich with 16 points in 25 games, and Dilla Holloway, one of the offer sheet pickups that St. Louis got from Edmonton, has 16 points in 27 games, and Robert Thomas has 15 points in 15 games. So he's actually been the best player. He's been a point a game for them at least. And rounding out the top 5 is Braden Shen with 14 points in 27 games. If anyone's wondering where Philip Broberg is, he's 8th place in scoring, 12 points in 15 games. He's another interesting guy because he's another RFA offer sheet pickup that they got from Edmonton in the offseason, for all that drama, to see if they're going to play well, but obviously weren't expecting to play up to their contracts. That's the whole point of the offer sheet, is to overpay to get them on your team. But this team is definitely not the scoring type, so the Sharks could play that stingy style they played against Washington. They can win this game if they do that. But with this new rejuvenated team with Montgomery, I feel like this could be like another 2019 2.0, but not as intense as they're going to win a cup or anything like that. But this new coach, like St. Louis, when they seem to get new coaches, that they get rejuvenated for a while. So after they got in 2019, when they got Craig Berube after they fired their last coach, they went on a crazy tear. And it looks like right now they've turned things around. And so it'll be a tough one for the Sharks. I'm going to say the Sharks maybe lose in overtime, but they're probably going to get away with a point at most. So they're going to lose this one as well. And finally, San Jose will play Utah. They'll finally go home. Unfortunately, though, they won't get much of a break. It's only one day off between Thursday and Friday. Thursday and Saturday, they're going to have the Friday off, but they'll be at home at least. They get sleep in their own beds before playing Utah, so maybe that'll wake them up a little bit. Utah is actually about 5 points away from playoff spot, 1 point ahead of the Sharks, so this is going to be another tight game. I'm going to guess Utah is probably going to be awake for this game as well. They're going to want to get revenge for that last game, the Sharks comeback, when that was really the game, the last time the Sharks played Utah, where they started to turn things around, get a little bit more confidence. You could see the Sharks kind of becoming the team they are now, where they actually kind of figured out how to score goals and everything like that. So I think Utah will be awake for this game, but I also think the Sharks will be capable of beating them. So in terms of the top scorers for Utah, Clayton Keller leads the team with 22 points in 25 games. Dylan Guenther has 21 points in 25 games. Nick Schmalz has 20 points in 25 games. Logan Cooley has his 20 points in 25 games. And their top defenseman, their offseason pickup, Mikhail Sergachev, has 16 points in 25 games. So this game, I would say the Sharks definitely are going to win it because they're home. They're going to feel a lot more confident, I think, sleeping in their own beds. So I'm going to say that this one's going to be a win for the Sharks. And overall, so if we can sum everything up, they're going to lose to Carolina, they're going to lose in overtime to St. Louis, and they're going to beat the Utah Hockey Club on Saturday at home. So they're going to come away with 3 points in 3 games. For a bottom-feeding team, you can't really complain too much if they can pull that off. I would be happy. It's just those little details they got to work on. So, A, they got to prevent those goals against as soon as they score a goal. B, they really got to fix that collapsing style where they just cover one guy and leave another guy open. And if we see those two things, that's going to be good things. And just some of those mental mistakes, if they're gone, with some bad giveaways when they're tired, like Mario Ferrero, and Ruda can kind of fix some of his mental flubs as well, I would consider this a win. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of good hockey from Celebrini. If Smith is back, we're going to see him playing well. Hopefully, Barclay Goodrow will be back from his mysterious injury as well. And the Sharks will maybe surprise me and end up getting more than 3 points in these 3 games. But that's going to be it for the scheduled win-loss section. And that also is going to be it for the Teal Teardown Hockey Podcast, the 8th episode. I appreciate you, wherever you are and wherever you're listening from. Just thank you for listening. You can catch me on Instagram. I usually post some reels and some posts there if you want to see some more content. I'm also on X at Teal Teardown HKY. On Instagram, I'm on Teal Teardown Hockey. And if you like the show, leave a like or a comment. It helps with the algorithm. And that's it for me. I will see you next week.